As a huge fan of the Dragon Quest series, the spin-off monster collecting games have always been some of my favourites, and even though Wonderland 3D never made its way west, it's now easily playable with a translation, making this remake of the Game Boy original one of the best ways to experience what makes it unique when compared to the mainline entries. As the name implies, you take up the hunt as Terry, a young boy from Dragon Quest VI who wakes up to find his sister having been kidnapped. With the help of the local wizard, Terry is transported to a world where monsters roam freely, and the only way to rescue her is to become a monster master. This sees you having to build the ultimate team of monsters, and for anyone fond of Pokemon, you'll be right in your element, with up to 600 of them to collect. And with a pretty cool synthesis system in place as well, there's plenty of customization when it comes to choosing how you want your monsters to behave in battle, allowing you to share abilities across different types with ease. Now each fight is where the game is at its best, and sees you having the choice of up to 3 different monsters to take into battle. It's all pretty straightforward at first, but as the game progresses you'll slowly have to start to take into consideration a wealth of different aspects, such as elemental affinities, status effects and combos that add a serious amount of depth to the overall system. As you would assume, each of your monsters level up individually and learn new skills through something known as the talent grid, where you're free to steer their growth in a certain way. It ends up being one of the more intricate aspects of the game, and goes a long way in providing a huge amount of replayability should you wish to see all of the options possible. Ultimately, when it comes to remakes, Wonderland 3D is a shining example of how to do it right. Persona Q is one of the handheld's best dungeon crawling RPGs that combines the deep strategy of the Etrian Odyssey series with the unforgettable characters, aesthetic and themes of the Persona universe. The story begins with a cast of Persona 3 and 4 finding themselves trapped in a strange, alternate version of their high school during a bizarre culture festival, where they are forced to explore dungeons themed around a different aspect. These act as elaborate labyrinths, such as a haunted house or wonderland, and along the way you'll come into contact with various characters from the Persona series, creating a crossover that'll no doubt please fans of the franchise. The biggest draw of the game for myself, and no doubt many others though, is the fantastic combat system, which plays out in a turn-based fashion, with each of the characters being able to equip both a main and sub-persona, allowing you to take advantage of a diverse set of skills and the ability to customize your party to fit your playstyle. As with the mainline games, the battles require careful planning, as exploiting enemy weaknesses grants additional turns while keeping your party's health and SP reserves in check. What really makes it shine though is the addition of the Union attack mechanic, which triggers when certain characters bond through story events and allows you to carry out a series of devastating attacks that are visually spectacular and provide a real sense of camaraderie between your party members. As one of the major releases for the Nintendo 3DS, Persona Q felt like a real love letter to the fans of the long-running franchise, and a great example of what it was capable of when in the hands of the right developers. Project X Zone 2 is an SRPG that brings characters together from a huge variety of beloved franchises and expands upon the crossover formula of the original in several different ways. First up, the story is a huge highlight, and the interactions between characters from vastly different worlds are often hilarious and heartfelt, making for an experience that feels both light-hearted but grand in its scope. The gameplay itself builds upon the foundation of its predecessor, offering turn-based tactical combat with a unique action-driven twist. Each battle is an exciting mix of strategy and fast-paced combo execution, where timing and positioning are crucial to your success. The crossover attacks and team combinations are easily some of the best moves in the game, and create a sense of synergy that is incredibly satisfying to pull off. And with so many characters available in the game, it encourages you to mix it up and experiment that often have explosive results on the battlefield. One of the game's biggest draws has to be the sheer amount of content it comes along with a lengthy campaign, countless unlockable characters and replayability through additional challenges. The game offers hours upon hours of entertainment and rewards those who are willing to delve deeper into its mechanics and go that extra mile. When it comes to the visuals, Project X Zone 2 offers up some of the best sprite work that you're gonna see on the 3DS, and the character animations are fluid and expressive, bringing iconic heroes and villains from Capcom, Sega and Bandai Namco to life in spectacular fashion. The attention to detail in these designs, combined with the vibrant battle effects, make each encounter feel like an epic showdown that just never fails to impress. With its addictive gameplay, charming story and star-studded cast, this is one game you do not want to miss. Dragon Ball Fusions is an SRPG that brings together characters from the series' entire history together for a tournament to decide which is the strongest of all. As the player, you get the chance to design your own fighter from scratch and then join a team of up to 5 members to battle it out on the field. The battle system is turn-based in nature and grants you several options when it comes to taking on your opponent. And although melee attacks are often more potent, the defender can still stop the attack by attempting to predict which way the strike will come from. That's represented by a circle that appears on the screen. On top of this, there are some standard RPG elements like team-wide ultimate attacks that can be used occasionally, and special abilities that consume energy orbs that accumulate over time. Even though the combat system isn't very original mechanically, it's still quite intriguing how deep it is, and as its name implies, executing fusions is also a major aspect of the game. The Dragon Ball universe contains a variety of fusion types, each with a unique application. For instance, though it only lasts for one turn, the potent 5-person fusion functions as a special attack during fights, as well as other types that can provide you with temporary boosts to your stats. As you can see, fusions is a bit of a looker when it comes to the visual department. The chibi models are the standouts when it comes to the game's presentation, as are the detailed backgrounds that depict various areas that fans will know and love from the show. It's clear that it's a really demanding game on the 3DS, as evident by the total lack of stereoscopic 3D, but its absence does nothing to detract from what is without a doubt one of the best SRPGs on the 3DS. Etrian Odyssey Nexus was billed to be the last entry in a long-running series of dungeon-crawling RPGs, which ended up feeling like a true culmination of everything that the games have built up over the years. The setup sees you taking on the role of an adventurer summoned to the city of Magania to explore a series of dungeons across the uncharted land, and as typical with the past entries, the story is pretty light, but for what it lacks in narrative depth, it's all made up for with its incredible gameplay. It retains much of what fans will know and love, with a huge focus on exploring and turn-based combat, with the series' signature feature of being able to manually draw your own maps. Here you're able to create whatever you'd like, may that be a treasure map or a map of certain enemies, but just as important as getting about each dungeon is, it's the combat where Nexus really comes into its own. With 19 classes pulled from across the series, there's an almost overwhelming amount of party customization that makes experimenting with them all the more fun and rewarding. As for the battles themselves, they're heavily based around resource management, with the two most valuable being FP and TP, which govern what your party's members can do. Basic attacks cost nothing, but special skills, buffs and powerful abilities consume a certain amount, demanding that you take them into consideration when making your choices in battle, as in some of the longer dungeons, if you haven't prepared yourself with items at the shop, you'll soon find yourself at a loss. When it comes down to it, Nexus is by far the best entry in the series, and although its difficulty can be crushing at times, it's the perfect game for newcomers to jump into, as well as veteran fans that may have not gotten around to it. The 3DS was an absolute powerhouse when it came to RPGs, and one of its finest offerings has to be the Bravely Default games, with the second adventure building upon everything that was introduced in the original, that blends classic JRPG elements with modern innovations to deliver an unforgettable adventure. Picking up a few years after the events of the first game, the story follows the leader of the Crystal Guard as he embarks on a quest to rescue Agnes, who played a huge role in the original. What makes the story truly shine is its balance and light-hearted humour, emotional depth and surprising twists, and the dialogue is written perfectly with plenty of wit and personality that serves to flesh out all of the characters you meet as well as the world that they inhabit. Of course, gameplay is where Second Layer truly excels, with the battle system remaining as one of the series' defining features, with its innovative Brave and Default mechanics taking centre stage. The ability to Brave allows characters to take multiple actions in a single turn, while Default lets them defend and store up turns for later. This risk and reward system adds a layer of strategy to each fight that keeps the battles dynamic and exciting, demanding that you think several steps ahead of the enemy. The job system is another great inclusion, and with over 30 of them to choose from, the variety is absolutely off the charts, and as you would expect, each of them offer distinct skills and abilities to take advantage of, and experimenting with different combinations is endlessly rewarding. For fans of traditional JRPGs, Bravely Second is a love letter to the genre's golden age that captures the magic of classics like Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger while updating the formula and providing one of the most unforgettable journeys on the 3DS. Pokemon X and Y are shining examples of how a developer can refine and expand on a long-running series whilst keeping its roots intact, and one of its greatest strengths is the abundance of new content and features which built upon the already robust gameplay that many fans would have known and loved, from improved features and entirely new mechanics that make diving into the Kalos region an absolute blast. Its huge cityscapes, diverse biomes and cozy towns feel alive and immersive, and the region's charm is amplified by subtle yet meaningful changes from the original games, such as being able to get around on roller skates and interact with the world in new ways. As is tradition in the franchise, you take up the role of a Pokemon trainer, and over the course of the adventure you'll be building a team of formidable Pokemon to use in battle, who each come along with their own elemental affinities and range of attacks that make each encounter a strategic affair. At its core, it adheres to the classic turn-based formula that has defined Pokemon since its inception, but what makes X and Y stand out is how this foundation is enriched with modern features, quality of life improvements, and expanded options that elevate battles to new heights. The introduction of Mega Evolution is a real standout, and sees certain types of Pokemon being able to temporarily evolve in battle through the use of a special stone that grants them enhanced stats and new abilities to pull off. It added a much needed amount of depth to the then tried and tested formula, but with the stones you need being hard to come by, it doesn't become something that you can solely rely on. For fans of Pokemon, these games are essential, and even though you may prefer Sun and Moon or the Game Boy Advance remakes, for me it'll always be X and Y when it comes to the best the series has to offer on the 3DS. Starting out life way back in the 90s, the Fire Emblem series has been puzzling players since the days of the NES, and has gone on to become one of Nintendo's flagship RPGs. Awakening is no exception, and at the time of its release, the seamless blend of new features and the balancing of the old made it one of the best entries that the franchise had seen to date. The standard gameplay of Fire Emblem has never been an issue, but they managed to improve it and make it more accessible to newcomers without ruining things for longtime fans. Like many SRPGs, all of the action takes place on a grid and sees the player moving their various units around the field and strategically engaging with the enemy when the time is right. At the start of each turn, you'll have to look at the map, form a plan, and then figure out the best way to advance. And you'll also be able to utilize your surroundings as you move your soldiers around the grid and take advantage of forests and attack the enemy from the shadows. There's a great selection of these special places on the map, which can all be used to your advantage, but you also have to take into account that the enemy can also do this as well. With so many different types of units and the ability to recruit most of them into your ranks, Awakening is one of those games you'll find yourself losing a lot of time to, but not even noticing whilst doing so. Now, the top screen is where all of the action happens visually. All field movements, conversations, cutscenes and battle scenes take place here, and the 3D effect is used pretty nicely, and while it's not really noticeable in most of the field screens, it looks much better during each duel. Character models themselves also look pretty good, with distinctive looks for all of your own units and well-varied enemy types to boot. So if you're a fan of Fire Emblem, this one is a must, and if you've never played the series before, it proves to be one of the best games to be your first. Shin Megami Tensei is one of the last great turn-based JRPG franchises that's still producing high-quality titles despite the genre appearing to be in decline recently. The story is mature and dark, and the gameplay is grueling and somewhat unforgiving, but that's where the game's appeal lies. It's not afraid to challenge the player and quite often put you on your ass if you're not prepared. And as with most games in the series, you take on the role of a demon summoner with the ability to use their powers and talk others into joining your cause. In order to grow stronger, you'll want to fight to gain experience, but there are many ways to do this other than just mindlessly killing enemies. Side quests are a huge part of the adventure and not only serve to dish out XP, but actually add to the world itself through meaningful interactions with NPCs that add a real weight to the intriguing world that SMT4 sets up. I won't go too much into the details of the story, as I believe it's one of the best aspects of the game, and going in blind is the best way to enjoy it. Now, the battle system isn't the only thing you'll find yourself getting stuck into, as once again the concept of fusing your demons together plays a huge role in the game. With the demons that you're able to recruit, you're able to level them up and fuse them together to create more powerful and different creatures, and it's here where a lot of the freedom within the game lies. Experimenting with the system will likely eat up more of your playtime than you can imagine, and it ends up being just one of the most engrossing games that you'll find on the 3DS. Dragon Quest has long been one of the more popular RPG series, with its roots reaching all the way back to the days of the NES. With each subsequent release came improvements to the formula, with the 8th entry being my personal favourite, as you assume the role of the silent hero who's out to stop a manacled jester that's stolen a powerful staff and begun to wreak havoc upon the kingdom. At its core, Dragon Quest VIII is fairly simplistic and is a much more traditional take on the genre that sees you starting out with a party of 2, but it's not long until more members join your cause, and this is where the game really begins to open up. Much like the older games in the series, you'll be selecting from a list of different moves you're able to perform, with each of your party members learning more and more abilities as you grow over the course of the game. In fact, the leveling up system is pretty extensive, and each time a character levels up, a certain amount of skill points are given, and it's up to the player to allocate each point into different categories. The more skill points given to a category, the more proficient a character becomes while having that weapon equipped, and several abilities unique to that weapon can also be learned as you advance. By giving the player the agency to choose their own path forward, it opens up many different ways for each of your characters to evolve throughout the adventure and hone in on what works best for your approach in each battle. So if you're looking for the best that Dragon Quest has to offer, then look no further than Journey of the Cursed King. Well, that does it for today's video. Keep an eye out for part 2, as that will be coming up soon. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos. You can follow me on all of the socials, which are linked below, to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters: Rhino, Skilljin, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Road Rage, Strider, Affinium Mind, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake, and Paddy J for the continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining the Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon or becoming a YouTube member, all of these links are down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to check the video out. I'll catch you next time.